The massive alien warship Dominion's Edge hung in space like a steel cathedral, its hull stretching 15 kilometers from bow to stern. Commander Zex Thule stood on the bridge, his 6 arms folded behind his back as he watched the blue marble of Earth rotate slowly on the main display. His species, the Kethmari, had conquered 47 worlds in the past century. This would be 48. "Status report," he commanded, his voice echoing through the bridge's crystalline walls. Navigation Officer Vex 1 tapped her console with precise movements. "Fleet deployment complete, Commander. 300 vessels in attack formation. Planetary defense satellites detected and cataloged. Their technology appears primitive." Zex Thule's mandibles clicked with amusement. These humans had barely reached their own moon. Their weapons were chemical-based, their ships crude metal constructs that could barely escape their planet's gravity well. It would be a massacre, but a necessary one. The Galactic Consortium needed Earth's resources, and the humans were simply in the way. "Communications, open a channel to the planet," he ordered. The communications array hummed to life, projecting his image across every screen, radio, and communication device on Earth. Zex Thule straightened his ceremonial armor and began the standard conquest declaration. "Humans of Earth." His voice boomed through the translation matrix. "I am Commander Zex Thule of the Kethmari Imperial Fleet. You are now subjects of the Galactic Consortium. Surrender immediately, and some of you will be permitted to serve. Resist, and your species will be extinct within the hour." He paused, allowing the weight of his words to sink in. On 46 previous worlds, this moment was when the screaming began. When planetary leaders begged for mercy, when populations fled in panic, when their primitive militaries launched futile attacks. But the response from Earth was different. Single transmission came back, audio only. The voice was calm, almost tired. It carried an accent that the translation matrix identified as North American English. "Commander Zex Thule, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. We've been waiting for someone like you to show up." Zex Thule's secondary eyes narrowed. "Waiting?" That wasn't the usual response. Admiral Chen continued, "You seem to have missed something important in your reconnaissance. I'm going to give you one chance, and only one chance, to turn your fleet around and leave our system. Consider this your final warning." The bridge fell silent. Several officers exchanged glances. Navigation Officer Vex 1's tentacles twitched nervously. Zex Thule's laugh was like grinding metal. "Human, you have 300 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy pointing at your world. Your largest vessel is barely 200 meters long. What could you possibly threaten us with?" There was a pause. When Admiral Chen spoke again, there was something in her voice that made Zex Thule's combat instincts stir uneasily. "Commander, has it occurred to you to wonder why in a galaxy full of intelligent species, Earth has never been contacted before? Why, despite our radio signals broadcasting into space for over a century, no one has ever come calling?" "Irrelevant," Zex Thule snapped. "You will surrender, or it's because the last fleet that tried this disappeared so completely that not even their quantum signatures remained. The Galactic Consortium classified this system as a dead zone and issued a standing order to avoid it. That order was apparently above your clearance level." Zex Thule felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. That was impossible. No planet could threaten a Kethmari battle fleet. No primitive world could. "Sir," Weapons Officer Keth 9's voice was strained. "I'm detecting energy readings from the planet's surface. The signatures are unusual." "Define unusual," Zex Thule demanded. "I can't, sir. The energy patterns don't match anything in our databases. The power levels are significant." Admiral Chen's voice crackled through the speakers one last time. "Commander, I'm going to count to 10. When I reach 0, you'll have exactly 1 second to activate whatever emergency protocols you have for total fleet evacuation. After that, it won't matter." "Human," Zex Thule snarled. "You underestimate the 1. The word cut through his threat like a blade. 2. Zex Thule's tactical display showed his entire fleet holding formation, weapons charging, ready to begin the bombardment that would crack Earth's crust like an eggshell. 3. "Sir," Keth-9 reported. The energy readings are increasing exponentially. Whatever they're doing down there. 4. It's probably some kind of bluff, Vex-1 said, but her voice wavered. Primitive species often resort to psychological warfare when outmatched. 5. Zexthul stared at Earth on his display. The blue world looked so peaceful, so defenseless. Surely no planet of primitives could threaten the might of the Kethmari Empire. 6. But something was wrong. His combat sensors were screaming warnings now, detecting energy buildups that defied physics as he understood it. 7. Commander, Keth-9's voice was urgent now. Recommend immediate withdrawal. These readings suggest 8. Zexthul's pride warred with his survival instincts. He had never retreated from a primitive world. The shame would follow him across the galaxy. 9. The energy readings peaked at levels that shouldn't have been possible for a single planet to generate. Admiral Chen's voice carried across space with the finality of a closing tomb. 10. The first thing that struck Zexthul was the silence. Not the silence of space, that was familiar. This was the silence of 300 warships suddenly ceasing to exist. The silence of energy signatures vanishing from his sensors, as if they had never been there at all. He stood frozen on his bridge, staring at displays that showed empty space where moments before had been the largest invasion fleet in Kethmari history. Status report, he whispered. Keth-9's hands trembled over his console. Sir, the fleet is gone. All ships, all personnel. No debris, no energy signatures, no quantum traces. It's as if they simply stopped existing. That's impossible, Vex-1 said, but her voice lacked conviction. Matter cannot simply be unmade. The conservation of energy. The laws of physics seem to be negotiable where humans are concerned. Admiral Chen's voice interrupted their confusion. Commander Zexthul, your ship was spared for one reason. Someone needs to go back and tell the Galactic Consortium what happened here. Zexthul's throat worked silently for several seconds before he could speak. How? How did you destroy my fleet without weapons fire? Without visible technology? That's the wrong question, Commander. The right question is, how did we build weapons that could do this while keeping them completely hidden from your sensors? The answer came to him in a flash of terrible understanding. You knew we were coming. We've known someone was coming for 50 years. We've been preparing. Impossible. Our reconnaissance was thorough. Your technology is primitive. Chemical. Rockets, nuclear weapons, basic electronics. Admiral Chen's laugh was dry. Commander, what would you say if I told you that's exactly what we wanted you to see? The implications hit Zexthul like a physical blow. A deception. Your entire civilization is a facade? Not exactly. We really did develop along those lines initially, but we had help. A long time ago, another species visited Earth, not conquerors, like you. Scientists. Explorers. They saw something in humanity that even we didn't understand at the time. On his display, Zexthul watched as portions of Earth's surface began to shift and change. What had appeared to be cities and forests revealed themselves as elaborate camouflage-covering structures that defied architectural logic. Massive installations rose from beneath false landscapes, their design clearly non-human in origin. The predecessors, Zexthul breathed. But they disappeared millennia ago. They didn't disappear, Commander. They evolved. Transcended physical existence as we understand it. But before they left, they chose a species to carry on their work, to guard this section of the galaxy from those who would spread conquest and suffering. Why humans? The question tore from his throat. Why not the Kethmari? We're stronger, more advanced, better suited for conquest and domination, yes. But the predecessors weren't looking for the strongest species, Commander. They were looking for the most adaptable, the most resilient, the most capable of growth. As Admiral Chen spoke, Zexthul's sensors detected more impossible things. Ships that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Weapons platforms that seemed to be made of crystallized space-time. Energy sources that drew power from the quantum foam itself. Humans, Chen continued. have a unique trait among galactic species. We don't just adapt to our environment, we remake it. We don't just accept our limitations, we transcend them. When the predecessors offered us their knowledge, we didn't just learn it, we improved on it. This is madness, Vex One whispered. A single primitive species cannot become more advanced than the entire galactic consortium in mere decades. You're still thinking in linear terms, Admiral Chen replied. The predecessors taught us to think in exponential ones. Every human advancement didn't just add to our capabilities, it multiplied them. Every generation didn't just learn from the previous one, it rebuilt reality from the ground up. Zexthul's tactical display began showing him the true scope of Earth's defenses. Weapons platforms that existed in folded space, visible only when they chose to be. Energy fields that could rewrite the fundamental forces of physics within their area of effect. Ships that moved through dimensions the Kethmari didn't even have names for. Your fleet, Admiral Chen said softly, wasn't destroyed. It was edited out of existence. We simply convinced the universe that those ships had never been built, never been crewed, never existed at all. The energy and matter that composed them was returned to the quantum foam from which it came. That's not possible, Zexthul said weakly. Even the predecessors couldn't. The predecessors taught us the foundation. But humans, Commander, are very good at taking foundations and building skyscrapers. We took their reality manipulation, technology, and turned it into something they never imagined. We became something they never imagined. The terrible scope of it was beginning to sink in. If humans could literally edit things out of existence, if they could rewrite the laws of physics themselves, then they weren't just more advanced than the Kethmari. They were more advanced than any species in the known galaxy. What do you want? Zexthul asked finally. What we've always wanted, Commander. To be left alone, to grow and develop in peace, to explore the universe and make friends with species who come in friendship rather than conquest. And if the Galactic Consortium refuses to leave you alone? There was a long pause. When Admiral Chen spoke again, her voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. Then we'll convince them the same way we convinced you. The same way we convinced the last fleet that came here. The same way we'll convince anyone who mistakes humanity's restraint for weakness. Zexthul realized that his ship's engines were already running, already turning away from Earth. He hadn't given that order. Commander, Admiral Chen said, your ship is being guided to a safe jump distance. When you return to Kethmari space, you'll tell them exactly what happened here. You'll tell them that Earth is under the protection of beings who can rewrite reality itself. You'll tell them that humans have become something that makes the predecessors look like children playing with building blocks. They won't believe me, Zexthul said. They will when they try to verify your report and discover that all records of your fleet, construction documents, crew manifests, mission orders have been edited out of existence. They will when they realize that 300 ships and 50,000 personnel never existed, because we made it so. As his ship reached jump distance, Zexthul looked back at Earth one last time. It looked so small, so blue, so peaceful. Nothing about it suggested the cosmic horror of what it had become. Admiral Chen, he said quietly, what have you become? Her answer followed him into hyperspace. We've become what humanity always had the potential to be, Commander. We've become hope for those who seek peace and the final word for those who bring war. Remember that when you make your report. The Kethmari homeworld of Zerion Prime sprawled beneath 3 crimson suns, its crystal spires reaching toward the heavens like claws. In the depths of the Imperial War Council chambers, High Admiral Kexmore listened to Commander Zexthul's report with growing disbelief. Let me understand this correctly. Kexmore's voice resonated through his massive frame. You're telling me that a single primitive planet destroyed the largest fleet in our history using, what did you call it? Reality manipulation? Zexthul stood at attention, his battle scars gleaming under the council chamber's harsh lights. 3 days had passed since his escape from Earth, and he still felt the phantom chill of watching 300 ships simply cease to exist. Yes, High Admiral, The humans possess technology that allows them to edit matter out of existence at the quantum level. They claim to have learned this from the predecessors. The council chamber erupted in voices. 8 of the most powerful military minds in the Kethamari Empire all spoke at once, their words creating a cacophony of disbelief and outrage. The predecessors vanished eons ago. No primitive species could master reality manipulation. This is clearly a psychological breakdown from combat stress. High Admiral Kexmore raised one massive arm for silence. Commander Zex Thul, you are asking us to believe that humans, a species that hasn't even achieved faster than light travel, have become more advanced than any civilization in known galactic history. I am reporting what I witnessed, High Admiral. The tactical recordings from my ship's sensors confirm. Sensor recordings can be faked, interrupted Admiral Tech 7. Holographic projections, advanced electronic warfare, psychological manipulation. There are a dozen explanations for what you think you saw. Zex Thul's mandibles clicked in frustration. Then explain the fleet's disappearance. 300 ships, 50,000 personnel, where are they? Destroyed by conventional weapons, Admiral Nex 4 suggested. Hidden weapons platforms, perhaps, or they could have fled to some other system. There were no weapon signatures, no debris, no quantum traces, and they haven't fled anywhere. I've checked with intelligence. No Kethamari vessels have appeared in any known system. High Admiral Kexmore leaned forward in his command throne. Commander, what you're describing violates the fundamental laws of physics. Matter cannot simply be unmade. I'm telling you what I saw, Zex Thul insisted. And what I saw was impossible by every definition we understand, which should tell us something about what we're dealing with. Admiral Zex 3 activated a holographic display showing Earth's location on the galactic map. The system is listed as a dead zone in our navigation databases, standing orders to avoid. Those orders were classified above my clearance level, Zex Thul said. But the humans mentioned that previous fleets had disappeared there. They said the Galactic Consortium had classified the system as forbidden after losses. A new voice entered the conversation, cold, calculated, and carrying the authority of the Intelligence Division. That information is accurate. Every head in the chamber turned toward the entrance, where Director Kex Prime materialized from his cloaking field. The head of Kethamari Intelligence was a figure of legend and fear, his cybernetic enhancements glowing softly in the dim light. Director I. Kex Prime, High Admiral Kexmore acknowledged. You have information relevant to this discussion? I have information that is classified at the highest levels of the consortium, Kex Prime said, his voice carrying the mechanical precision of his enhanced vocal cords. The Sol system, Earth system, was indeed declared a dead zone 73 years ago after the disappearance of a Vorthon exploration fleet. 47 years ago, a hegemony battle group vanished there. 28 years ago, a joint consortium scientific expedition suffered the same fate. The chamber fell silent. The implications were staggering. Every mission to that system has resulted in total loss of personnel and equipment, Kex Prime continued. No survivors, no debris, no transmissions. The ships simply stop existing. The consortium's response was to classify the system and forbid any further contact. Admiral Tech 7's voice was strained. Why weren't we informed of this before authorizing Commander Zex Thul's mission? Because, Kex Prime said with cold efficiency, the classification level was deemed sufficient to prevent any further incidents. No one was supposed to go there. Zex Thul felt a chill of realization. The mission orders. Who authorized them? High. Admiral Kexmore's expression darkened. The orders came through standard consortium channels. Resource survey and acquisition of a primitive system. Standard expansion protocol. Those orders were falsified, Kex Prime said flatly. Someone wanted a Kethamari fleet to encounter whatever exists in the Sol system. The question is why? The War Council exchanged glances loaded with suspicion and fear. If someone was manipulating their missions, feeding them false intelligence, then the entire structure of the Empire could be compromised. Director, High, Admiral Kexmore asked carefully. What do our intelligence files say about the actual capabilities of the humans? Kex Prime activated his own holographic display, showing streams of data that made Zexthul's blood run cold. Our files show exactly what Commander Zexthul described as their primitive technology. Chemical rockets, nuclear weapons, basic electronics. But these files have been recently accessed and modified. Someone has been very carefully maintaining the illusion that Earth is a helpless target. The humans themselves, Admiral Nexfor breathed. They've been manipulating our intelligence networks. For how long? Kexmore demanded. Unknown. But if Commander Zexthul's report is accurate, potentially for decades. Long enough to study our technology, our tactics, our weaknesses. Long enough to prepare. Zexthul's tactical mind began processing the implications. High Admiral, if the humans have been monitoring our communications, our intelligence networks, our military capabilities, then they know everything about us while we know nothing about them. Kexmore finished grimly. The chamber fell into thoughtful silence as 8 of the most brilliant military minds in the Empire tried to process the scope of the deception. Finally, Admiral Tech 7 asked the question that was on everyone's mind. What do we do now? High Admiral Kexmore stood from his command throne, his massive frame casting shadows across the chamber. Director Kex Prime, I want a complete audit of our intelligence networks. Find out how deep this manipulation goes. Admiral Tech 7, recall all fleets currently engaged in expansion operations. We need to consolidate our forces until we understand what we're dealing with. And Earth? Zexthul asked. Kexmore was quiet for a long moment. We do nothing. We add our own classification to the Sol system, and we hope that whatever the humans have become, they remain content to be left alone. High Admiral, Admiral Nexfor protested. We cannot simply ignore a potential threat of this magnitude. If they possess reality manipulation technology, then we cannot fight them, Kexmore said with finality. Commander Zexthul witnessed the complete annihilation of our largest fleet without the humans firing a single conventional shot. If they wanted to destroy us, do you think our fleets would stop them? Do you think our planets would survive their attention? The terrible logic of it settled over the chamber like a shroud. They were no longer the apex predators of the galaxy. They might not even be on the same evolutionary level as their potential opponents. There is one more thing, Kex Prime said quietly. The falsified mission orders that sent Commander Zexthul to Earth? They didn't originate from outside our networks. Someone within the Kethmari Empire wanted that fleet to encounter the humans. A traitor? Tech 7 suggested. Or, Zexthul said slowly, someone who wanted the Empire to understand exactly what kind of beings we share the galaxy with. Someone who thought we needed to be educated about the true nature of the universe. High Admiral Kexmore looked at each member of his council in turn. Regardless of the motivation, the message is clear. The age of Kethmari expansion is over. The age of human ascendancy has begun. As the council dispersed, Zexthul remained behind, staring at the tactical display showing the small blue dot that was Earth. Somewhere on that peaceful-looking world, beings existed who could rewrite reality itself. Beings who had transcended the limitations that bound every other species in the galaxy, and they had chosen to use that power for restraint rather than conquest. It was, he realized, perhaps the most terrifying thing of all. 6 months after the Sol System incident, as it came to be known in classified consortium files, the galaxy had begun to change in ways both subtle and profound. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck of humanity's newest installation, a massive structure that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously and served as both a monitoring station and a diplomatic facility. Through the crystalline walls, she could see the swirling beauty of hyperspace itself, the fundamental backdrop upon which all reality was painted. Admiral, her aide, Captain Marcus Webb, approached with a tablet displaying the latest intelligence reports. We're receiving transmission requests from 14 more species, all requesting peaceful contact and offering various forms of tribute. Sarah smiled wearily. Tell me, Marcus, do you remember when our biggest worry was whether we could get a probe to Mars without it exploding? Different times, Admiral, though I have to say reality manipulation technology has definitely streamlined our space program. The joke was gentle, but it highlighted the staggering transformation that had occurred. In the months since revealing their true capabilities, humanity had become the unofficial arbiters of galactic politics. Species that had warred for centuries now sought human mediation. Trade disputes that had threatened to become shooting wars were brought to Earth for resolution. Status report on the Kethmari Empire, Sarah asked. Completely reformed their expansion policies, Marcus replied, scrolling through data. They've withdrawn from 12 recently conquered worlds and are offering reparations to displaced populations. Commander Zex Thul has been promoted and is now heading their new Department of Xenological Ethics. And the other major powers? The Vorthan hegemony dissolved their war council and replaced it with a peace assembly. The Crystal Collective has opened their borders to refugee populations for the first time in their history. The Synthetic Alliance has begun sharing their medical technology freely with organic species. Sarah nodded, though her expression remained thoughtful. All because they're afraid of us. Is that necessarily a bad thing, Admiral? Marcus asked. How many billions of lives have been saved because aggressive species are choosing diplomacy over warfare? It was a fair question, and one that haunted Sarah's sleepless nights. Humanity had never asked to become the galaxy's police force. They had simply wanted to survive and grow in peace. But when you possessed the power to edit reality itself, even restraint became a form of influence. Any word from the deep space? Monitoring stations, she asked. That's where things get interesting, Marcus said, his tone shifting to something more serious. We're detecting signs that our reveal has attracted attention from beyond the galactic rim. Energy signatures that don't match any known technology. Sarah felt a familiar chill run down her spine. The predecessors? Unknown. But whatever's out there, it's been watching us since the Sol system incident. Dr. Patel thinks they're evaluating us. Dr. Rajesh Patel was humanity's foremost expert on predecessor technology, the man who had first unlocked the secrets of reality manipulation. If he thought something was evaluating them, it was worth taking seriously. Bring up the deep space display, Sarah ordered. The observation deck's walls shifted, showing a three-dimensional map of the galaxy and the space beyond. At the very edge of sensor range, barely detectable even with humanity's enhanced technology, were formations that defied easy categorization. They weren't ships in any conventional sense, they were more like organized patches of space-time itself. How many? Sarah asked. Difficult to say. They exist partially outside normal space. Conservative estimate? Thousands. Possibly millions. Sarah stared at the display, her mind racing through possibilities. Humanity had transcended their original limitations, but they were still young by galactic standards. If the predecessors, or beings like them, decided that humanity had grown too powerful, too quickly, Admiral, Marcus said quietly, there's something else. We've been receiving transmissions, not from any known species. From them. Sarah nodded toward the deep space formations. We think so, but the transmissions aren't in any language our translation matrices can process. Dr. Chen thinks they might be mathematical in nature, but operating on principles we don't understand yet. Dr. Chen is my sister, Sarah said with a slight smile. She's probably right. Patricia always was better at the theoretical stuff than I was. The tablet in Marcus's hands chimed with an incoming priority message. His face went pale as he read it. What is it? Admiral Dr. Patel believes he's decrypted part of the transmission. He says it's an invitation. Sarah felt the universe shift around her, not literally this time, but in terms of possibility and implication. An invitation to what? To join something called the Cosmic Assembly, a gathering of, he's having trouble with the translation, ascended species? Beings who have transcended their original evolutionary limitations. The implications were staggering. If such an assembly existed, if there were other species like humanity that had evolved beyond conventional understanding, then everything they thought they knew about their place in the universe was wrong. And if we refuse the invitation? Sarah asked. Marcus consulted his tablet again. Dr. Patel isn't certain, but he thinks the mathematics suggest evaluation and potential correction. Sarah understood immediately. They were being invited to join a community of ascended beings. If they refused, or if they were deemed unworthy, they would be corrected, potentially edited out of existence just as they had done to the Kethmari fleet. How long do we have to decide? The transmission includes temporal coordinates. The invitation expires in 72 hours. Sarah looked out at the swirling depths of hyperspace, where beings of unimaginable power waited for humanity's answer. In trying to protect themselves from galactic conquest, they had revealed their capabilities to forces even greater than themselves. Marcus, send a message to Earth Command. Priority Alpha authorization. Tell them to prepare for the possibility that our first contact with truly advanced beings is about to begin. And our response to the invitation? Sarah was quiet for a long moment, weighing the fate of her entire species. Finally, she turned to face her aide. We accept, but we go in with our eyes open and our reality manipulators ready. If this assembly wants to evaluate humanity, they're going to find out exactly what kind of beings we've become. As Marcus hurried away to send the message, Sarah remained at the observation deck, watching the distant formations that represented humanity's next great challenge. They had transcended their limitations once before, with help from the predecessors. Now they would have to prove they deserved their place among the true powers of the universe. The age of human isolation was ending. The age of cosmic responsibility was about to begin, and somewhere in the depths of space, beings older than galactic civilizations watched and waited to see if humanity was ready for what came next. Epilogue. Beyond the Veil. The cosmic assembly convened in a space that existed between dimensions, where the fundamental forces of creation gathered in patterns too complex for mortal minds to fully comprehend. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the center of a vast amphitheater that seemed to stretch infinitely in all directions, surrounded by beings that challenged every assumption about life, consciousness, and existence itself. Some of the assembly members appeared as geometric patterns of living light. Others manifested as complex mathematical equations that somehow possessed awareness and intent. A few maintained forms vaguely recognizable as biological, though they clearly transcended any limitations of matter and energy. At the center of the gathering, a presence that could only be described as the first speaker addressed the assembled multitude. Its communication bypassed language entirely, conveying meaning directly to the consciousness of every being present. The humans have arrived, it announced, and Sarah felt the weight of countless ancient minds turning their attention toward her. They come bearing the mark of the predecessors, yet they have surpassed their teachers' original designs. Sarah stepped forward, feeling the reality manipulation technology woven into her being respond to the strange physics of this place. Around her, the space subtly shifted to accommodate human perception, allowing her to maintain her sanity in the face of cosmic forces. We come seeking understanding, she said, her words carrying further than sound should travel in this impossible space. Humanity has grown beyond our original limitations, but we're still learning what that means. A presence that radiated the patience of eons addressed her directly. You have taken the gift of the predecessors and transformed it into something new. This is unprecedented. In the billion years since the first ascension, no species has fundamentally altered the nature of transcendence itself. We didn't know we were changing it, Sarah admitted. We thought we were just trying to survive. Survival, another presence observed, is the driving force behind all evolution. But most species, when granted transcendence, become content with their new limitations. They accept the boundaries of their ascended state. Humans do not. Images flooded Sarah's mind, visions of humanity's future spreading across multiple timelines and dimensions. She saw human explorers mapping the spaces between universes, human scientists unraveling the equations that governed existence itself, human philosophers asking questions that had never occurred to beings billions of years older. This presents a challenge, the first speaker continued. The cosmic assembly exists to maintain balance, to prevent any single species from disrupting the fundamental order of creation. Yet humans have already begun to rewrite that order simply by existing. Sarah felt a chill of cosmic proportions. "Are you saying we're a threat?" "You are a catalyst," came the reply. "Your very presence accelerates the evolution of consciousness itself. Other species that interact with humans begin to transcend their own limitations at unprecedented rates. The Kethamari, who were stagnant for millennia, have begun asking philosophical questions that challenge their entire worldview. The Vorthan. Hegemony is developing empathy where none existed before. Even synthetic species are beginning to dream. The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't just changing itself, it was changing everything it touched. "This is why you have been summoned," the first speaker explained. "The assembly must decide. Are humans to be constrained, to prevent further disruption of cosmic order? Or are they to be embraced, knowing that their influence will transform the very nature of existence?" Sarah felt the weight of her species' future resting on her response. Around her, beings older than the galaxy itself waited for her words. "What do you think we should be?" she asked finally. The question surprised the assembly. She felt their collective attention intensify. "That is not the question we expected," one presence admitted. "Most species would argue for their right to exist," another observed. "But we're asking what we should become," Sarah said. "Humanity has always been defined by our potential for growth. If that growth threatens the cosmic order, then maybe we need to grow in a different direction." "Remarkable," the first speaker said, and Sarah detected something like approval in its communication. "You offer to constrain yourselves for the greater good of existence." "If that's what's needed," Sarah confirmed. "But I'd like to propose an alternative." The assembly waited. "Instead of constraining humanity or allowing us to disrupt everything, what if we became partners in managing that disruption? What if humans became the assembly's agents of change, helping other species transcend their limitations in controlled, beneficial ways?" The concept rippled through the assembly like a shockwave. Sarah could feel ancient minds processing possibilities that had never been considered. "You would accept responsibility for guiding galactic evolution?" "We already are guiding it just by existing. The question is whether we do it accidentally or purposefully." "The burden would be enormous," another presence warned. "To guide the transcendence of billions of species, to maintain balance while fostering growth, to prevent the chaos that unlimited change could bring." "Humanity has always thrived under pressure," Sarah said with a confidence she didn't entirely feel. "And we wouldn't be doing it alone. We'd have the assembly's wisdom to guide us." The discussion that followed existed outside normal time, a debate between beings who could perceive past, present, and future simultaneously. Sarah felt herself becoming part of something larger. Her consciousness temporarily expanded to encompass the cosmic scope of what they were contemplating. Finally, the first speaker rendered the assembly's decision. Humanity will be granted provisional membership in the Cosmic Assembly, with the specific mandate of serving as catalysts of transcendence. You will guide other species toward enlightenment, while maintaining cosmic balance. You will be monitored, advised, and if necessary, corrected by the full assembly. But, another presence added, you